Welcome to Music 320, Week 11, Lesson 5. This is building an effects patch using the matrix. And this will basically be what we would have done on the Friday of Week 11. So I'm going to begin more or less with what we had in our last tutorial, which was a bunch of UBC toolbox objects which have the potential of being placed in all kinds of different orders, but I need some object in order to be able to do that. So I'm going to disconnect all of these to start with, and I'm actually going to add a few more things to this, my startup sequence. I've got the ring mod, the delay, the reverb, and the harmonizer all turned on. I've got the volumes all put up to 90, which is a good volume. You probably don't want it any higher than 90 as an input volume. And then I'm going to say ring mix L 0.8 in 1,000 milliseconds. Now the mix is the wet-dry mix. So each of these are going to have a wet-dry mix, mix L 0.8 in 1,000. There's the delay, the harm, mix L 0.8 in 1,000, and the reverb, mix L 0.8 in 1,000. The reason I set it to 0.8 is that normally in a live performance situation, you have a lot of signal coming from whatever instrument is actually generating the signal. So let's say you have a cello that's playing and you have a microphone on the cello. Well, the cello sound is already in the hall reverberating around. And so often if you don't have your mix set fairly high to the wet side, you will hear too much cello because you've got all the original cello sound, and then in your effect you've got half of it is the cello sound again, reinforcing what was already there. So if I click on this, you can see they all turn on, the volumes all go up, and the wet-dry mix has been set. Now things are getting cluttered, so the first thing I'm going to do is to create a subpatcher called effects. I'm going to cut all of those out, and I'm going to put them into here. There they are. Let's put them, these are still attached, aren't they? Let's put them in alphabetical order because it will be easier to remember. Let's put the delay first, the harmonizer second, the reverb third, and the ring modulator fourth. And all I'm going to do here is to put inlets so that we can send a signal into this. Duplicate that. Duplicate those. Okay, so we've got 4 inlets, each of them going to a separate effects unit, and then we'll have outlets, and we'll have 4 outlets. So I'll fix that. My mouse is being a bit funky right now. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So those have just been duplicated. Save that. Save this patch. Okay. Save it as okay. So then I've got my effects unit. Now, in order to be able to send my effects units to any other effects unit in any order and in any combination, I need a matrix in order to do that. And so I'm going to go into the UBC toolbox. I'm going to create a B patcher. I'm going to choose. I'm going to go to Max 8, into UBC Toolbox, this time I'm going to go into the control modules. And under the control modules, I'm going to go to Matrix New and Matrix New BP. This is a 16 by 16 matrix. There are also 24 by 24 and 32 by 32 matrices. These are basically, depends on how many inputs and outputs you need. 16 is probably plenty, unless you're doing a whole bunch of 8-channel processing and you need more. So this is what the matrix looks like. It's very colorful, and essentially it has 16 inputs, 16 outputs, and a control matrix which allows you to click on circles in the matrix, and it's like a patch bay, allows you to control what inputs go to what outputs. So for example, actually, I'll add in matrix on off 1 to the bottom of that, so that when I click on this, it turns on, as do all the effects with all their settings. Except my ring modulation didn't get moved up to the wet dry, so I must have made a mistake. Oh well, I'll figure that out later. All right, so this is the matrix. It's turned on. It's got all these inputs and all these outputs. So the way it works, I'm going to connect up the microphone into inlet number 1, matrix number 1, or matrix line number 1. And let's connect the output of number 1 to the speaker going out. So essentially this means that the matrix is coming in, or the microphone is coming in essentially down this line. And wherever we engage one of these crosses, the signal will go out that outlet. So even though the inlets are at the top and the outlets are at the bottom, think of the outlets as being down the side. Okay, so if I want inlet number 1, or signal coming in number 1, to go out number 1, I click on this. And this will mean my signal will go straight up. I put my headphones on, and as I bring this up, you can hear that my voice is coming directly out. So the input's being routed to the output, and when I turn this off, you can notice the difference. Okay? So let's engage the effects units. So let's send the second outlet from the matrix into the first inlet here. Now that will be the delay in, and this will be the harmonizer in, and this will be the reverb in, and the fifth one will be the ring modulator in. Okay, that's simply because that's the order we put them in the effects unit. And so that means that we can send our signals from the microphone to any one of those. Think of this as the speaker, the delay, the harmonizer, the reverb, the ring modulator. But those signals themselves don't go anywhere. So what we need to do is to bring the outputs from our effects units back into our matrix. So that will be the digital delay is coming in 2. The harmonizer is coming in 3. That wasn't as pretty as it needs to be. The reverb is coming out and going in to number 4. And the ring modulator is coming out and going into number 5. Okay. So right now we've got this connected so that we can patch any of the inputs to any of the outputs. And actually the first thing I want to do is to set up the labels. See all these dashes? Those dashes are not very useful. It would be really nice if we have labels on all the inputs and outputs so that we won't make mistakes. There is a danger that if you send the output to the reverberator, as an input to the reverberator, you can get a feedback loop, and get a screaming, wild frequencies happening. So you have to be a little bit careful. Not the end of the world. You just disconnect it. But I'm going to click on this little button here, and that brings up a call. And what I'm going to do is put the labels into this call in order so that I will go along the top with the first 16 labels. And I'll say Mike, maybe capital M, Mike. And I'm going to keep these short because there's not much room for these. Delay. Yeah, that's right. Delay is 2. 3 is harm. 4 is reverb. 5 is ring modulator. Notice I'm putting a semicolon at the end of these at their proper calls. And actually I did this earlier, so I'm going to just copy and paste a whole bunch of stuff in here to save me some time. Basically what I have is the first 16 are the labels along the top, and then 17 is the speaker, 18 is the delay, 19 is the harm, 20 is the reverb, and 21 is the ring, and those are down the side. Okay, so I will save this. I'm going to do two things. I'm actually going to save it and give it a name. I'm going to put it, I got to make sure I put it in the same directory as my my patch. So I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to call it matrix labels 01 dot text. You have to remember that name. Okay, and then so there's two little buttons here. The first button opened the call. The second one sends the call out to the labels. So even though that's very small, I can read what those inputs are and what the outputs are. And of course, I got to make sure that I did everything in the right order. Okay, so now I've got labels. I've saved the labels into my folder, so I can get them later. I don't have to redo that every time. And I want to set up some presets. So for example, let's say the microphone comes in to the delay. So it comes in here and goes out the delay. And if we do that, we'll have the signal going to the delay, but the signal will never come out of the matrix. We'll never hear it because nothing's coming out to the speaker. So then what we do is we send the delay into the reverb, and then we send the reverb to the speaker. And I'm going to shift and store that setting in my preset number 1. So let's hear how that sounds. We're basically coming from the microphone to the digital delay, and the digital delay to the reverb, and the reverb out to the speaker. And there you can hear the effect of that. Okay, so that's working. Let's try a completely different configuration. Let's click on these to remove them. Let's take the microphone going to the harmonizer and also to the ring. So we don't have to just go to one source, we can go to 2. So we're, in a sense, think of this as splitting the microphone signal, going 2 different places. And then the harmonizer will go to the reverb, and the ring modulator will go to the reverb, and the reverb will go to the speakers. Right? So you can see every time I'm looking, where is it coming in at the top, and where is it going out on the left? And let's set that as our preset number 2. Okay, so now we have two different presets. And let's listen to that one. So you can hear the ring modulation really clearly. There's some reverb in there. And yeah, they're both being reverberated. And let's switch to preset number 1. And now you have digital delay. And now you've got your ring harmonizer. Okay, so as you can imagine, you can have multiple presets. You can have, well, a lot of them in here. And you can, of course, set the presets programmatically, or you can click. In other words, you can send a message to the matrix to choose a particular preset. I want to save these presets, and you'll notice there's a small read and write button. So I'm going to write this preset, and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to make sure I save it in the same folder, and I'm going to call it Matrix Presets 01, and it has the extension .max presets. So I'm not going to change that. I don't want to change that because it is a preset. And I'm going to save that. And I'm going to... Now, if I look at the info panel for the matrix, and this is very small, but it says read matrix presets with a file name and load matrix labels with a file name. So I can add those to my startup. That would be read matrix presets, and the name of it was matrix presets 01.max presets. It's got to be exactly the same. If it's not the end of the world. Just get an error. And put a semicolon at the end of that line. This is getting kind of long, isn't it? There we go. And load matrix labels, and I called that matrix labels 01, and I think it was a text file. Put a semicolon at the end of that line as well. And of course I see this big box in the front of my screen, and I thought, well, let's create a sub patch called setup, and let's put this in the setup patch with an inlet so I can bang it to start initialize my patch. Things are looking a little cleaner in my patch. So let's send a bang in there, and I put a little label there saying init. Anything I want to set at startup can be done inside that setup. Okay, let's save this. Close it. And let's open it again. There it is. And we can see that the matrix neither has our labels nor our presets. So let's hit the initialization button, and there our labels are loaded, our presets are loaded, and we're ready to start. And this will be my digital delay. And this will be my harmonized ring modulated. And there it is, my ring modulated harmonized reverb. Okay. So one of the things I want you to notice is that I've set this up so that with one click of a button, all of my modules are turned on. They're all set to the values I want them to start with. And my matrix is all loaded and ready to go. So I can start a piece very, very quickly without having to do 10 or 12 different things. Now, I've got a whole bunch of inlets still available. So for example, if I wanted to bring a sample player in, or if you wanted to bring your looping project from assignment 5 in, you would simply just load it into the matrix, add the label to represent that. If I had a sound file that I wanted to bring in, let's see if I have something really handy here. Here we go. There we go. Yep, I forgot. There, I'll drag it in again. I have to be in edit mode to drag it. There we go. This is what's called a playlist. It's a very simple way of getting audio in if I simply want to play back a sound file. So, for example, I can just link the output from my playlist into here. There's only one sound file in it. It's a poem being spoken. So it's now coming in number 6. So let's, go to matrix preset 3, and let's say that I just want my matrix incoming signal to go straight out to the speakers. Put some volume up.
Her eyes in sleep afterward. Her body, my love. Sounds she utters then, without meaning but not meaningless. My heartbeat, even now, echoing them.
So I can play around with this, send it out. Let's say I send it out to the harmonizer. It's going to the speakers. It's also going to the harmonizer, and the harmonizer is going to the speakers.
Her eyes in sleep afterward. Her body, my love. Sounds she utters then, without meaning but not meaningless. My heartbeat, even now, echoing them.
Okay, so you can see that it's very easy to bring other sound sources in. It doesn't have to be the microphone. It could be another player. It could be some kind of synthesizer that you've built. You could bring in one of the synths from the beep objects and bring it in here. But the matrix does provide you with a great mechanism for being able to control the path of your audio. Okay, that's really all I think we're going to have time for this project. Next week, we'll look at some of the UBC Toolbox players and see how they work and how they might be used for not just processing sound, but for actually generating sound. So thank you.